I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Yes. Well, welcome everyone here in person, and those who are streaming tonight, welcome as well. And as you know, every month we do our exemplary nights and exemplary staff, and we had a Blue Ridge Connect meeting at 5:30 over at the Bellflower Community Center, and we already did one of our exemplary nights over there. Romero Fernandez did our on the piano. We're going to start with the staff because sometimes everybody takes out of the building before the staff even gets recognized here. And our staff, they do an excellent job here. And especially with all the COVID and everything that's gone on the last few years, they've had to do above and beyond the expectations of their workload. So we really, truly appreciate that. And we have two of the staff members here this evening. And from the Schneider Elementary School, we have Tracy Barding. You would come forward, please. You have to stand in front of everybody for a little while. Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School, Kenny Peters, he's unable to be here because he's working. So, and then from the Blue Ridge High School, we have Marcus Mintier here tonight. We'll get a group picture of you real quick. All right. Just a reminder that if you get the monthly newsletter from the district, in that you have the reports from the building, and they kind of give a brief description of why they chose the staff members and why they chose the exemplary nights as well. It's interesting to read the details and what each child's unique characteristics are. With the students here tonight, when I call your name, I just ask for you to come forward. We're going to start with the older kids so they can stand in the back of the line here against the table. From the Blue Ridge High School, Wyatt Cole and Alexis Wyke, I don't think are here this evening, so they may be remotely. Let's give them a hand. 8th grade, Romero Fernandez is not going to be here. He already got his certificate over in Bellflower. Just give him a hand as well. 7th graders, Caleb Forrest and Brogan Flanell, and I don't think they're here as well. Oh, there you are, sorry. Sixth grader, Wyatt Laidley. The 5th grader, Christina Guest. 4th grade, Claire Weedman. 3rd grader, Bennett Denny. 2nd grade, Reese Little. 1st grader, Hadley Ray Bruning. And kindergarten is Taya Brumfield, but I don't think she's here, is she? Okay, well, let's give her a hand as well, okay? Thank you, guys. Stay up here for a group photo and continue on doing the great work. All right, thank you. If you don't want to stay the rest of the meeting.
Thank you for coming, families. Mom's got it. One thing at a time, Dale. Yeah, they are. They are. Come on up, Charity. No. So. Let me go ahead. Okay, next we have communications. We have a FOIA request from Smart Procure. That's to see where we're purchasing from, all of our vendors, and we complied with that in a timely manner. Next, board, in front of you, you have a letter from the high school athletic director, and you've seen that before you. We can discuss that later and go to the cause if you would choose to do so. Committee reports, we had none for this month, and administrative reports. I'll go ahead and go first. So we had Blue Ridge Connect tonight, and that was a fantastic success. I believe, I asked Kenna to do a count. What did you come up with?
Well, I was way overthinking it. I think it was initially, it was 51 with babies. And then, there was 3 babies, 19 children, then an adult walked in, then it was 56 with the choir.
Yes,
So it
that's
was
that's
in
the number
50s.
that I got. I got 56.
How many babies were there though? There were 3 babies.
Yeah.
One of them might have been.
So we had RSVPs for about 40, just shy of 40. We had a couple cancellations. Then we had, Sarah Ressler said, I think there's about 10 more to expect. So that took us up to about 50. So as we were walking in, I said to Ryan, I said, maybe high 30s will be doing great. So to have 56 people there, I thought that was fantastic. So what a great way to get that kicked off. So the next thing in my report, I wanted to go straight to strategic planning. For the board, you have in front of you an updated packet, fresher off the press than what you saw inside of your board book. And I'm going to turn almost to the back 2 pages, back 2 or 3 pages, to goal area 5, the area of programs and services. That is our new goal area for this month. Goal 5.1 was to assess current extracurricular offerings. And so the SMART goal that we want to provide to you tonight for your consideration. The BRHS administration will create and complete an activities participation survey by grade level and gender. This will be discussed annually to determine program relevance and inclusivity. So we wanted to make sure that what we're offering is still on target. And I think that's what the committee was getting to when we did our October strategic planning. So we want to be able to see if there's new activities that should be formed or if there are some activities that are no longer pertinent to our student body. Second goal, 5.2, to develop continuity with extracurricular programs. That's one of the comments that we've heard repeatedly for the last couple of years, wanting to make sure that the junior high programs are feeding properly into the high school. So what we have listed there was the high school and intermediate junior high school principals and athletic directors will meet in August and once every quarter thereafter to increase communication and alignment between both levels of each sport. So in other words, baseball coaches from both levels will be meeting together. So the principals will model that for the athletic directors about how that communication should happen, and then they'll oversee that communication happening with the coaches. And goal 5.3, increase awareness of support services. So in a survey that we did last spring, we found that a lot of families were not aware that we had access to a school psychologist, a social worker, and so on. So we've done a little bit of doing a Facebook message out with basically putting together a Canva page formatted so we can ask some of those people what their role is, how long they've worked in the district, tell us a little bit of something about you, how can we reach you, and we started to push those out last fall. We'll continue that and make sure that we get all of our Tri-County people involved in that, along with our own in-house related service staff. So our new district speech and language pathologist, all of our school counselors, and then, like we said, the Tri-County administrator, psychologist, social worker, OT, and PT. That way we can keep those ideas in front of our families so they know what services we do have. Okay? Any questions on any of those sub-goals that we have drafted for you? I would encourage you to take this packet home. In the middle of it, you will find we have done as an admin team, and then as Paige and myself working together today, we have supplemented a lot of the goals that we want to offer to you inside of Goal Area 3, Student Achievement and Curriculum. Frankly, we wanted to hold ourselves more accountable than what the group was asking us to do so in October in terms of accessing student data, using that data to make decisions across ELA and math in particular. And we feel like it's time for us to be held accountable for that. And we're looking forward to that task in front of us. And the next thing I wanted to bring to you is, at our district ILT meeting most recently, we've been practicing how to communicate with each other as a group through things that we agree on and disagree with, and how can we move forward collectively. So we thought it was perfect timing that we would bring the task of creating the district mission statement and do that work with that group, which has a broad representation. And so we went back to the October 16th data that we had. We read through that, and then we did what we called a crosswalk with doing some common language work. We started with, if you remember, Paige at her table and at Katie's table, they were coming up with some verbs that we wanted to use to shorten but make a really impactful mission statement, kind of modeling after what Jake Romano had said that they were using at Herff Jones. And so we had a lot of E-verbs that came up. In fact, we had 6 that we brought to the table that day. And we all went around, we defined what those words meant, and then we worked. It was really a neat process to see the brains working and coming up with what we define each of these words as. So up at the top of your statement it says, Blue Ridge Schools will embrace, engage, equip, and empower students, staff, parents, and the community. That's something that we hope we will be able to push forward and have accepted perhaps at the next board meeting once we've had a chance to bring this out to staff as our new mission statement. We feel like those 4 verbs are very important to us, so I'll go ahead and read out loud how we've defined them each. Embrace, to include, appreciate, involve, and support each other. Engage, to us, means to navigate new experiences, connect with each other, and solve problems. Equip, to us, means to provide each other with knowledge, skills, and tools. And empower means to foster confidence that elevates our community. One of the things that we heard loud and clear in that October meeting was not just having a mission statement for what goes on inside of each school building, but what goes on with our parents, our families, and our 3 entire communities. And so we really feel like this is a representation that calls us all to this good work moving forward. Any thoughts or comments that you have on the proposal? Yeah.
And it looks actually great on the night shield as well.
So the principals asked for something, so there's a little bit of handwriting on here, but what I envision, so on the 25th, on Monday the 25th, we have a school improvement day, and one of our buildings is involved with some special work that day, but Brian and Ryan's buildings are going to, their building level instructional leadership teams are going to be describing this big task that the district leadership team has been doing all year, why we've been meeting for 2 hours every month, how we came up with some of this mission statement work. And so their staff is going to present to their peers what we've been doing. And so this is one of the tools that they're going to use. So up on top it has our new nighthead, and it has the mission statement that I just read to you, and then the definition of all our E-verbs. And then, with a little bit of drawing, tried to show what Herff Jones will eventually put together for us with our knight in the middle, our shield surrounding, and then cut into quadrants. We have our 4 E-verbs, and then written around, we have Blue Ridge Knights, across the top, and then to the sides, we have students, staff, parents, community. So to us, we've gone back and revisited many times, and we feel like this really represents the work that we have in front of us. So this hopefully will live on a postcard. So when we have our first night events in Farmer City on the Monday before school and in Mansfield on the Tuesday before school starts, hopefully there'll be some food involved. Parents will come, drop things off, meet teachers, and have one of these postcards that then goes on the refrigerator. So that's the long-term plan.
All right.
And I think that leads me into the money talk. So in front of you, you have your quarterly financial report. And one of the goals from strategic planning is for the superintendent to be more instructional when going over financial documents. So I'll take a few moments to do that. This quarterly financial report gives information as of the end of March, or actually early April. And I'll remind those who have a copy in front of them, your column D is actually now for the first time your audited fund balances. Remember, our annual financial report was done quite late this year. A lot of auditors were backed up with a lot of work due to COVID, so we didn't get that until many months late. But we have our audited fund balance as of June 30th of 21. That's represented in column D. And then in the other green columns, E and H, you can see the budget that you approved back in September. So column E is what you approved for our estimate of the revenue that would come in, and column H in green is what we approved as our estimate, or maybe overestimate, of what our expenditures would be. F and I is what you're looking at as to what's been updated for you this month. So in column F, that's our actual revenue that you see coming in for each of our funds, and then in column I, you're seeing the actual expenditures. What I spend my time doing is looking at column G and column G and J. So G tells me what percentage of the revenues that I expect to come in have actually come in to date. And you'll see we're about 75% through the fiscal year. Our revenue numbers are a little bit on the low side in many of our fund balances. So then that prompts me to go and have a discussion with our bookkeeper and try to figure out, okay, why are we in that situation? I've written a note for you right underneath the chart, underneath where it says grand total, to say that our FY22 revenue percentages are actually impacted by the receipt of early FY22 taxes in FY21. So we ended FY21 back in June with receiving 132% of our budgeted revenues. So in other words, we got paid early. So we had really extraordinarily high revenue that finished out our last year. So that means that this year we're sitting at a really low spot, but we anticipate getting that early revenue for next year's fiscal year before this fiscal year is over. Okay? Let's see, in our expenditure column for our percentages in column J, what we want to see is that we have not spent over 75% in any of our funds. You'll see that we're a little bit close in IMRF and Social Security. We're doing fine there. We have a fund balance to cover, and actually we're right on target there. And then our tort fund is right at 76%. Everything else is a little bit lower, again showing as we anticipated that we're slightly overestimating our expenditures in our budget. Okay. Another thing I wanted to note was that, let's see, there's 3 other notes that I left on the bottom for you. If you remember, we have transferred $315,000 from working cash into Fund 60. That's for the completion of the transportation office building. So that's not shown as a revenue or expenditure because it was just a transfer of money. And same thing, it went into working cash. Again, where you'll see that reflected is in column L with the projected fund balance. So working cash up on top, that projected fund balance of $646,000 actually has the $315,000 that was transferred out already taken out. And then in site construction, Fund 60, down at the bottom, if you go to the right in column L, instead of having a $423,000 deficit, we would have only a $11,000 deficit in that fund. Okay. And I do want to note, as the City of Farmer City promised, through their TIF work, they were going to provide the district with $62,000 in a donation towards the Memorial Plaza that will be built sometime in the future. That is also sitting in Fund 60. I didn't reflect that in the balance, as that's something that's set aside for a specific purpose at a later date. Anybody have any questions?
No. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's all for me tonight.
All right. Okay, Ryan, you're up.
Good evening. I just have a few things I'm going to share tonight. First off, we completed our IAR testing for this school year. We had 3 days last week, April 12th through the 14th. Unfortunately, we had several students that were sick last week, and so just this week we were able to get everything made up. So we were excited to have that finished, and we'll be excited about results here that'll be coming hopefully here soon. Open house, we had a great open house just last month, actually this month. It seems like a long time ago, but it just happened not too long ago. It was a great event. Mr. Dale Schneeman came and got to see the fun event. We had a lot of families here. They were able to go throughout the entire building. They visited current teachers, last year's teachers, specials teachers throughout the building, into the night with the scavenger hunt where they got to get a free cookie from the cafeteria. So that was always an exciting night.
I didn't get a cookie.
Well, Dale, there were extra. We had about 50 extra. We actually had 250 cookies and 200 were gone. So that means we had a good turnout of students that were there. It was honestly one of the best. I think people were excited to be back in the building. It was great to have parents there. They were very excited. Yes, open house. We had our spring concert also in March. That was another fun event. Mrs. Weiler puts on some really great shows. This time they traveled to kind of Ireland and had more of an Irish-themed event. The kids got to sing, dance, recite several lines and so on, but they had a good evening and did another great event. And thank you to Mrs. Weiler for putting that together, and also for all the teachers who are there to support and really make that night happen, because there's a lot that goes into those events, from practice to the actual performance that night. And then, let's see, last but not least, I wanted to introduce to you Charity Nadrasny. Actually, Charity is one of our hopeful teachers that you guys will approve tonight. She has had several years of teaching experience and admin experience, and we're excited to have that knowledge and skill set on our staff. So really looking forward to another collaborative staff member to have on board.
Good. Great.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Payton. Okay, I just have a few things to highlight because I've been running around all evening. We did finish up IAR testing today, so a huge thank you to my staff, especially Andrea Weedman, for being our testing coordinator, and everyone for making sure that all happened, and all the teachers who are pitching in to get those makeup tests done, because Friday is our deadline for the state, so we will make that. And then just a quick update on homework club for the junior high. We're having about 10 kids come every week, and we have 2 staff members working with them, and we're seeing a lot of positive results from that, and a lot of grades going up and a lot of assignments getting turned in. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we are coming to a very exciting time of the year. Well, at all schools, but for high schools, it's particularly exciting because there's so many big major events going on. And I realized kind of each week going forward, we're really winding down because we got FFA banquet this weekend. The following week, not like immediate, but like 10 days after, is our honors night and awards presentation ceremony for our top students. That's kind of a big deal. The following, about a week after that, is prom, which is a big deal for our juniors and seniors. And about a week after that is graduation, which is kind of a big deal for the seniors as well. And very shortly after that, of course, we finish up with finals and send everybody on their way. So we are really winding down, and some big things coming up that we're very excited about. Also wanted to mention something, I don't think I put it in the board report, I can't remember, but I have been talking with some kids who inquired about wrestling. And quite frankly, I understand what wrestling entails financially and space-wise and things like that. And when they came to me, I said, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that here, right now, but I could look into a potential co-op situation with another school district. So we started having those discussions. We actually found somebody that wanted us, but it was too close at the beginning of the season, and we just couldn't make it happen for this year. We've kind of rekindled those conversations now that we're winding down, and so I just wanted to kind of mention that because there's going to be some additional pieces to that puzzle as we go, as far as figuring out how to transport our kids from here to another location potentially for a co-op for wrestling. But we can have those. I just wanted to plant that seed so that you can be thinking about how we will do that. Yes, Chelsea.
Who would the co-op be with? Who are you having these
Yeah,
discussions
I guess it's okay
with?
for me to say. It's Clinton. And one of the considerations that they have to look at is they would their enrollment, if they bring us in as a co-op, they have to take our entire enrollment of student body and will that bump them up? And it doesn't. So that's why they're willing to take us on. A concern that Evan and I both have is we don't want to take kids away from other programs that already exist and diminish what we have here. So I've been looking very closely at the kids that are interested in doing that, and they don't appear to be basketball players, you know. I don't know the incoming freshmen. I don't know what that will look like with them, but the guys that we have here, it wouldn't be that. We actually met with the AD from Clinton yesterday or the day before, and he said that they've actually got some girls that are starting to do wrestling, because there's actually a girls state wrestling series as well. And so he threw that out as well. He said, hey, if you got any girls who want to wrestle, they can come our way too. So that's just been in my head for about a day. So I'm going to start scouring the hallways for girls that look like they want to beat somebody up. And I think I have a few of those in mind. Whether or not we can transfer that to the mat, we'll see. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, so the student I have that brought this to me initially has kind of been my champion, and I've been asking him, hey, get me names, who you thinking about? And he provided me with a list of about 9 names. I'm fairly certain that a couple of them won't be able to participate in athletics for one reason or another, and then a couple others, I think, once they realize how big of a commitment it is and how difficult it is, they may back off. So we've told Clinton we may have anywhere from 3 to 5 kids that could be a part of your program, and we would count on being significant contributors. And the nice thing is they're doing what they call open mat, which is basically an open gym. It's just kind of open to whoever wants to come over, and they can, roll around and practice different moves and whatnot. They're doing that periodically here for the next few weeks, and then they've got a camp set up that's open to whoever for the summer. And so I've encouraged our kids, and I've given them the dates and the information, and they're going to, if they're interested, they're going to go check it out, and then we're going to revisit it as the summer winds down and find out how serious our kids are. Because if they come back at the end of the summer and Clinton comes back and says, yeah, none of your kids showed up, then that's going to be a pretty clear indication that maybe this isn't a thing. But if we've got 5 or 6 kids that are going and are really excited about it, then I'll definitely push for that. And we don't have to make our decision for IHSA. We don't really have to declare that until like October in order for that to happen. But I think from our purposes, to find somebody to transport them and things like that, I think it is something that has to happen sooner than that, most likely. So I'm new here. I'm just learning. So I don't know how much longer I get to say that, but I'm going to try. I'm going to keep trying.
All right. Any other questions? All right, you may be seated, Brian.
Okay, I don't think I only have one new addition since I submitted my board report. We did get another allotment of title money, and so with that money, we were able to purchase additional intervention materials for the intermediate and junior high school. We were able to update some of our phonics materials at Snyder, and then we were also able to send some of our teachers in June to a week-long training in Mahomet to learn more about our Lucy Calkins writing training. So that's pretty pricey, and so it was nice to have those additional funds to be able to provide that support to our staff. I think we had about 8 teachers that showed interest that they're willing to spend a week in June to learn more of how we can support our kids in writing. So do you have any questions about my report? Yes, on Friday, I know that Ryan and myself, and then Raquel Eshelman, our ELA coach from the ROE, is going to join us too. So we get to go for free. So that's exciting.
Appreciate it. Katie, I think, I forgot to ask you, was it a child, it was in the News Gazette, were they from your campus, that won first place for art, or who was that?
Yeah, that was mine.
Okay. Yeah.
$100 prize for Pandemonium Donuts, Industrial Donuts. It's one of the donut places in Champaign.
Yes.
Awesome ad. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's very good drawing. Yeah. All right.
Like I talked about that last month. The stuff that some of these kids draw and do is.
We need to get them on that shield, the drawing of the shield.
Are you? I think Hillary's artwork is fantastic.
You just bought yourself another year. You just lost dessert.
Where? So moving on to technology and operations, O&M, transportation, food services, you had those reports. Does anybody have a question on those reports? All right. So we have approval of consent items. We need a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented. Jason and Chelsea.
Yes.
Yes. Going to old business.
That would be me. So Dave Kramer has given a report to you with the purchase request. We did do a bidding process. We did not get any response. You see the total right there is estimated at $80,000. This is a purchasing for the network refresh project that's hopefully done over the summertime. And Dave is here tonight if you have any questions about those very technical items that are listed on the schedule for purchasing.
No questions here. Anyone? All right. So I need a motion, a second, to approve the purchase of the networking equipment for projects that will be completed during the 2022 summer for Blue Ridge Community Unit School District 18 as presented. Carlos? Jason?
Yes.
Yes.
And before I go on, one board member had contacted me and asked if we could maybe have an estimate of how much money we might be saving by doing this project in-house. Dave, I'm not sure if you were able to give us any kind of a crazy idea of how much time and money we might be saving.
Yeah, so it was very rough numbers. So judging, it was based on the install time for each individual piece, and came up a little north of $45,000 would be what it would be to hire it out. So, and then based on our hourly figures, our cost to install is going to be about $5,000. So it's a savings of about $40,000, give or take a few $1,000.
So like we had talked about before, it's worth spending some money to have somebody on staff to save some money.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is where we're going to be able to resell some of the old equipment, right?
So we can resell some of it. We can't resell all of it right away because we have commitments from previous purchases. So some of it was purchased, some of the product was purchased via E-rate. We have time commitments we have to meet with some of those products. So we can't sell it all, like as soon as we get it installed, we can't get rid of all of it. There'll probably be about 50% of it we can get rid of right away because we've already met those time commitments. The rest of it will kind of go in phases as just the same way that we purchased it. So the value in the product is pretty high, especially right now with the global shortage on technology. So resale value on those products is pretty good. So I estimate that by the time we get about half of it sold, we're probably going to be at about 75% or more of, maybe even all of it, have recouped all of our costs. So.
All right. Appreciate it. Second reading of Press 108 for 120 Food Services.
Right, and this is just one that was accidentally left off the large packet of Press 108, and it's a 5-year revision.
Need a motion and a second to approve Press 108 for 120 Food Services Policy Update for Blue Ridge Community Unit School District 18 as presented. Chelsea?
Second.
Kenna?
Yes.
Yes. Approval of 10-year HLS report.
Okay, so this report, if you would go to page 279 in your board packet, you'll see that we're looking at the priority A, B, and C items for each of our 3 buildings. Our priority A items are about $54,000. Those are items that should be done within the first year of approving our 10-year review. And our priority B items are just over, let's see, $1.9 million. Priority C, those are recommended, they're not required. That's about $500,000 for a total of about $2.5 million. District-wide. A lot of the work that needs to be done would be roofing here in Farmer City, both the elementary and the high school campus, the lintel work, which is like the trim around the windows themselves, and there's a lot of doors that have to be worked on. A lot of the doors are the priority A items. They're lower in cost, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So with your approval tonight, what happens next is then we take this back to the architect and the engineer that did this report for us. They submit it to ISB, and then we wait and find out when we get approval. We currently have money, as you saw in the quarterly financial report. We have some money sitting in Fund 90, which is our HLS fund. We are not allowed to spend any of it until we have something approved through ISB. Unfortunately, 2 days ago, the person who does all the approval for HLS at ISB retired, and they don't have a replacement, so they're telling us that it could take a very long time. So basically what we've come up against is any thought of doing summer projects using HLS funding is probably out the window right now. So luckily, a lot of the things that we need to do would be in-house jobs with very small financial commitment, a lot of the doors that have to be fixed. So Doug's going to work on that with the knowledge that we might not be able to access even our own funds for quite some time. So what we hope to do is in May have a facilities committee meet again and to look over processing all of this information that came to us and what do we hope to get done in the first 6 months, the next 6 months, and so on, knowing that that time frame is really held in ISB's hands. Steve Adams from PMA, who's done our bond work with us for a number of times. He and I will be talking tomorrow, looking at this number that you approve, and then we'll be talking about him coming at some point in the summertime and making a presentation about how we could kind of dovetail or feather in some of our bonds that are becoming callable at the end of 2022, along with doing HLS bonds for this about $2.5 million. So I think we're going along in the right direction, and we'll try to bring an organized list in a different format to you next month.
I appreciated all the pictures on there because sometimes we aren't able to get up on top of the roofs or
Yeah.
see all the different areas that they do, and it sometimes surprises you what condition some of those areas really
Yeah.
are.
Yep.
So we need a motion and a second to, unless anybody has questions, we need a motion and a second to approve the 10-year HLS survey completed by Reef Stick Reed and GHR Engineering for Blue Ridge School District 18 as presented. Francie? Chelsea?
Yes.
Yes. Approval of bid for the VAV box replacement at Blue Ridge High School.
Okay, some work was started 2 years ago with a school maintenance grant. Susan Wilson started that process. I finished it the summer that I came in. A lot of the variable air boxes were replaced. We were not able to finish the project. Typically, what a school maintenance grant does is they match district funds up to $50,000. So $50,000 from us, $50,000 from the state. You can do a $100,000 project for half the cost. So the engineer approached us about finishing that job this summer here at the high school. And they anticipated that the cost would be about $124,000 to finish the project. Well, the bids were just brought in last week, and the low bidder was, we had 3 bids, low bidder was $48,800. That's kind of unheard of, absolutely unheard of right now. So GHR reached out to make sure, and all the bids were very close to each other. So it wasn't like one was really low and the others were what we anticipated. They were all within like $6,000 of each other. So Richard Van Note from GHR made sure, and I have worked with him enough to know that I can trust that he's gone back to that company, and they are able to finish the entire building that needs to be done for that cost. So that presents a problem, a good problem. So now we are leaving some money on the table with that school maintenance grant. So the question on the table is, can we find and would the state approve another $50,000 project, half of which they would pay for, half of which we would pay for? So what I heard from the regional superintendent was the only way that they would maybe even tolerate a amendment to that grant would be if it was a very closely related project. And so one of our engineers gave an idea of something that we could do today, but I'm waiting for the others to respond to see if we could even approach that. So that's kind of where we are. Hopefully we can do something else still by this summer and not leave that money on the table.
Right. Good. Any questions? I need approval of bid for the VAV box replacements at Blue Ridge High School. So to accept and approve the bid from the United Mechanical in the amount of $48,800 for VAV box replacement at Blue Ridge High School as presented. Jason, Carlos.
Yes.
Yes. Consideration of MOU with the Blue Ridge Federation of Teachers regarding COVID sick days.
Okay, so we recently had a House bill passed that talks about restoring, there's 3 components to the bill that just passed. Number 1, employees are able to recoup any lost pay since March 9th of 2020 through the end of the emergency declaration, which were at least updated or approved through May 1. It probably will go another 30 days to finish out the school year. So anybody who had to take a dock day because of one of the 5 listed COVID reasons, or if you remember, we had that thing called FFCRA days, basically 10 free days that people could use. Some people used beyond that, so they went into what we called Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, and they were paid at 2/3 rate. So there's, again, a little bit of pay that was docked. So anybody that missed a full day of pay or a partial day of pay, they're able to give us documentation. We have to validate, prove it, maybe ask for different records if we don't have that proof in district, and then that pay will be given back to them at the rate that they were making. So if that was last year, they would be paid back at their last year pay rate. That's one thing that was in the bill. The second thing that was in the bill was a restoration of sick time, in other words, sick days, for vaccinated, this is all for vaccinated staff, and the definition of vaccinated is currently through the CDC, 2 weeks after your last of a 2-dose series or 2 weeks after the single dose J&J. Has nothing to do with the booster yet. And they are allowing people to get vaccinated now if they want to, as long as they're done by May 11th of 2022. So if you weren't vaccinated but you want to have the benefit, you still have a chance to get in. But only with a J&J, because there wasn't enough time to do 2 doses and 2 weeks before that time is up. Okay, so that covers, that vaccination status covers the makeup of the pay that I talked about, and then the second part of the bill was restoring sick time. The restoration of sick time for employees is only for this current 21-22 school year. We actually haven't had many staff members that have, as many staff members that have been absent during the 21-20 school year as compared to the 2021 school year. So right now, I had only seen 2 come across my desk because we created and sent out a form to staff. I only saw 2 come in, and I started working on them, and then I saw that Krista had a whole file folder of them. So it's going to be a lot of labor to go back and cross-check and then to make amends with that, but we will follow that. The third part of the bill that was approved says that any PSRP who would have lost pay because they are not able to perform their job during an e-learning day have to be paid, as well as any contractors. We don't have to worry about contractors because what that means is outsourced food service, custodial, or bus, and we don't have anything outsourced. So we have to make sure that we're paying our paraprofessionals, our own employees, on e-learning days, which we are, and we have. We have never docked them for that. So going forward, most likely, like our K through 6 teachers send home, here's a just-in-case e-learning packet. In case technology goes bad, here's some activities. Department heads will be instructed to have a packet of things that bus drivers could do from home if need be, or cooks could do from home if need be, such as training, things like that, that they could work on. So we're paying them to do that training on those days.
Okay.
So here's the next part. So the next part is, for a few months, we have talked about, should the district do something for its employees because of what's been happening for the last couple months. We had a neighbor district who had decided to amend the number of sick days given to every staff member for just this 21-22 school year. We have had it on the table for a while, but we wanted to wait until that bill was passed and we knew exactly what happened. So now's kind of that time. The question that is left on the table, what is TRS going to do? What financial penalty will be given to the district if you do one of 2 things? Some districts are allowing unvaccinated personnel to have the same benefits of the bill, even though the bill just says vaccinated people, okay? So they're giving back the lost pay and the sick days for this year. Other districts are deciding, if they're doing anything, other districts are deciding that they want to amend the number of sick days for every employee, whether they were vaccinated or unvaccinated. There's fair and unfair to both, right? So at this point, Jeff Funk believes that the least amount of risk would be to amend the number of days sick days that we give to employees for the 21-22 school year. He feels like there would be less potential for a TRS penalty if everybody was given the same thing. So that is before you. I let you know in the packet that my recommendation would be, if we wanted to do something like that, that we would consider the number 5 days to give to everybody, but know how that falls. So that means that a vaccinated staff person already has been restored, and they'd get the benefit of 5 more. An unvaccinated staff member would still be potentially in the hole if they had to use any time, but they would get 5 days towards whatever had happened. Maybe they weren't in the hole at all, and they got 5 extra like other people did, or they might have been in the hole 10 or 15, and we're making up some of that for them. But also know that the bill right now does not give any allowance for religious exemption or medical contraindication. So those are the facts.
Did I read something where you would have opportunity to be fully vaccinated by a certain date?
Yes, by May 11th of 2022. So you would not have time, for a 2-dose vaccination plus 2 weeks after, but you would have time to do the J&J 1-dose vaccine plus the 2-week waiting period. That would still fit in before May 11th. That's why when this House bill was passed, we did some quick work. I did some quick discussion with Rob Duke as union president and Jeff Funk as district attorney, and then we got that information out to staff so they would have ample time to make that decision if that fit for them.
Are there any questions, concerns?
It just feels icky. Like, I can understand why somebody who previously had COVID would not want to get vaccinated afterwards if they had natural immunity. So because they already had COVID, but because they're choosing not to get vaccinated to get that other immunity, they're not going to get anything restored, even though they have immunity that is as good or better than the vaccine. It kind of seems like we're doing the haves and the have-nots.
Well, the government
Not us, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
The government is doing the haves and the have-nots. They're dividing people into 2 distinct categories. And I'm not,
They said that if you've had COVID, you didn't have your vaccination, you had COVID, I thought it was only like 90 days afterwards that you really had the immunity in your system.
and, the recent studies I've seen are showing that it's lasting longer actually than the vaccines.
I think that's one of the reasons why we had talked about doing the same for everybody. So
Yeah.
you can look at anything that's done, you can find a way for it to be fair or unfair, equal or unequal, right? And so we can't be perfect. I think the union is very understanding that this was not our decision. This
Right.
was something that we were given, and we have to now
Right.
actually do a lot of work.
Right, and you said it doesn't make any accommodations for like somebody who, let's say they were immunocompromised and their doctor told
Right.
them not to get vaccinated.
Their lawsuits have started,
Yes.
but there's nothing currently in the bill that was passed.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to, I think it's timely to bring it to us now, to have that consideration. And even though doing the same for everybody also feels unequal,
Right,
there is a part to it that is equal.
right.
Yeah.
I know that Jeff is advising that we go with the adding extra days because he thinks that that would be less of a penalty. I'm leaning towards if the government is mandating that we have to give X group this benefit, we need to give that benefit to all of our employees. That's,
I would think that way if we can be guaranteed we're not getting hit
yes.
with the TRS penalty.
I know, and I'm not somebody that likes to spend money.
Because I would want to know what
Yeah.
the penalty is before making that decision, because that's taxpayer money, and there'd be a lot of people not happy with that.
That's true, yeah.
I'm like, we don't know right now what would the penalty be. I feel a lot better about saying, here's what the penalty is, how could we cover that, than to just say, well, we'll just kind of roll the dice and figure this out.
Yeah.
It'd be a big hit.
And from what I understand, I don't think you're going to be able to make a timely decision, even if you waited till next month and really understand what the TRS penalty would be.
So they don't
They're
even,
being elusive, and we feel like it's intentional.
so these legislators are just,
It's all very intentional. The bill went to the governor. It was for all, and he sent it back saying, bring it back to me, and have it say vaccinated only, and I'll sign it.
yeah.
So it was very intentional. It's a way of progress through. So we know that. We know that that's just kind of where we are. Unfortunately, offering the 5 days gives those that are not
It's
vaccinated
something.
but then it is an extra perk for those that are vaccinated. Any days they made, I could almost guess some of the people that did, because they all kept asking me, like, I shouldn't have to use these days, I shouldn't have to use these days. I mean, there's a couple people that just kept messaging me, I'm like, I have no power. So I'm sure they said theirs, and now they're gonna get their 5 extra, you know,
Yeah.
here's where they were, now they're up a little higher, they get extra week added on for their 6. Unfortunately, it's still a have or have not.
Right.
Yeah.
Other people aren't fully restored, and the other people are, like, trying to restore them, we're getting a bonus kind of other. One of those things, unfortunately.
There's just no
There's no
nice,
great answer.
there's no nice answer.
No.
And,
But what we're trying to do is realize, and I think the whole board understands, someone shouldn't be punished because they're living by their conviction.
exactly, yeah.
And if down the road, I don't know, if we decide to do this, but down the road we find out the TRS penalties aren't going to be, I don't know if there's another MOU or anything like that you can do in the future, when we find out what those penalties.
So like what you're saying is do this for now, and if we find out that we can restore them, I think I just got blood on my shirt, sorry. If we can restore them, look at it in the future. I like that. I think that's a great,
I don't think this seems, we'll never talk about it.
right,
And I don't think we should consider it the payback of any lost pay for people that have that we are providing this benefit, that we are being told.
Yeah.
This is what you will do, and this is how you will do it. So it's not like a blue.
it's not our choice.
Yeah. And Rob and I can work together very well and make sure that we get I can write the message that he can
That-
send out.
That we're not pleased by that. We feel like it's a division that is
Yeah.
unnecessary.
All right. Any further questions? Francie, use your microphone next time, please. Called you out.
Speaking loudly. I was like, oh my God, someone did text me.
So there's no further discussion.
You have to
Like-
come up with a number.
We have 5 here before us. I know some districts were doing quite a bit more.
We can always, just with the other part of the issue, we can look at adding more later if we needed to, correct?
Mhm.
So 5 is a good place to start at.
Consensus, yeah, everybody nodding their heads, okay.
I think it's, I mean, it's, I mean, it's a week, so that's a decent number, I think, and hopefully, I hate to say the word hopefully, but if there are lawsuits that do that, for the people that, you know, aren't vaccinated and aren't being restored, it could very well come down the line that they do get restored later.
Right.
And then everyone just gets the extra 5 days, which I think is, it's still a goodwill gesture for everything that everyone has
Yep.
gone through and, you know,
Yep.
the stresses that have been on everyone the last couple of years to say, you know, we do appreciate this and that when these things happen, this is one way, you know.
Yeah, good starting point. So we need a motion and a second to sign the MOU with the union to increase its number of sick days by 5 for all Blue Ridge School District 18 employees for the 2021-2022 school year due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic as presented.
That was fancy.
See, I'm sorry, the mic wasn't on. Second? Jason.
Yes.
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 Yes. Need a motion and a second to move from open session to closed session for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, dismissal of specific employees of the school district, probable litigation, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act for semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 206 at 7:56 p.m. Carlos moved. Dale second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.